Hello, my curious peeps! This is Kat, aka Kakibot, and today I am welcoming you back to my little guest room where we usually sit down and have a little talky vlog about things that are on my mind and I want to share with all of you. Today it's going to be all about how life in Scotland changes you as a person, because I have been around for, it's going to be 12 years now, and recently I've been thinking about this a lot, like how life in Scotland changes you from, when I first came here as this starry-eyed ingenue. I was never that, but when I first came here when I was 21, 22, and now I'm 33, 34 very soon. And obviously there is a big caveat of from being 22 to being 34, like you do quite a lot of just becoming an adult. So let's not focus on that. Like obviously I am more of an adult now than I used to be when I came here to start my studies. But yeah, I try to focus on things that I can actually pinpoint as being an outcome of being here in Scotland. Yes, so let's start. First of these things that I've noticed that have changed about myself is that my baseline for what I see as good weather has changed, and it's easy to always fall into this like, Scotland, weather is bad. Like it's such a cliche topic, but it genuinely, like, you physiologically and mentally change. Year over year you have to withstand all this wind and drizzle and these long nights. It really makes you appreciative of the relatively good weather days, to the extent that people in Scotland, including me, will happily take a whole afternoon of work. Like if it's sunny outside, you will just say sorry boss, I cannot be stuck here in this office, I'm off. I've really learned not to assume the weather will work in my favor. I think that because the weather is so changeable, when you live here, you truly kind of get in the mindset of if I'm planning something, I will not plan it around the assumption that weather's gonna be good. Instead, I'm gonna kind of know that whatever the weather is, there's gonna be some sort of upside to it. And if I have to walk into the city center and there's a gale force wind coming into my face, then at least I'm getting some good exercise. And that takes me to my second point, which is that I now walk everywhere. And this is a change that happened to me relatively early on in my life in Scotland. It doesn't take 10 years for you to get used to walking everywhere. It probably takes a couple of months, but it's just so noticeable, not only to me, but even to people who come and visit me. And even when I go to other cities where I used to live, when I go to Prague, and Prague has such a good public transport network, it's tempting to be using it, but now I'm just so used to walking everywhere. And living here gives you the superpower that you just know how long it's gonna take to get somewhere if you walk. So as long as you're only relying on yourself and your little feetsies, then you're always everywhere on time. So I have a couple of scenarios here that will show you that very often walking somewhere is basically the same amount of time as taking the bus, and obviously walking somewhere is cheaper than taking the bus. And also, especially during high times, during peak times, taking the bus is not the most pleasant thing ever. It's full, it can get hot, it can get smelly. So yeah, walking for the win. So first of all, this is not our address, but it's kind of vaguely in the area of where we now reside. Getting to, let's say, Scrannan-Skelly in Stockbridge, by bus 23 minutes, by feet 29 minutes. Now here's kind of a more touristy scenario, so maybe this one is more kind of descriptive of what you might be experiencing, but this one is from the middle of George Street, and it's basically a scenario where you want to go from the middle of George Street to Dean Village, where walking is 15 minutes and taking the bus is 13 minutes. So as you can tell, these especially these shorter walks, almost it's a no-brainer. Just walk it. I think that if it's within 30 minutes, you are better off just walking it. Walking! And you know what? When you're moving to Scotland, sometimes your Scottish friends might give you a little hint, that this is not the most healthy thing you can do for yourself. You will definitely become vitamin D deficient, and most of the food here is beige. But the walking, I would say the walking really makes up for that, because a lot of people who live in Scotland, and especially in the cities, and you know, Edinburgh isn't actually that walkable. Like, sometimes I do say that, like, it's walkable, but I think that it's walkable because that is genuinely the most practical way of getting around. However, like, the actual walkableness is questionable. Like, I often, if I walk around the city center, I will have to like walk in the road, like the bits meant for just the cars, which, you know, is a bit dangerous. Don't do it. But sometimes I have to do it because the sidewalk is like really tight, and you know, in the city center there's a lot of visitors, they like to stop around, take pictures, and I don't want to be mad at anyone, but I sometimes, you know, when you're following that sixth sense and you want to be somewhere on time, you can't just like get stuck behind tourists trying to look into Maison de Mogi to see the cats. That's fine. It's fine.
Walk faster!
It's fine. Take your time. I'll just jump into the traffic. It's fine. You know me. I'm a friend of the tourist. So, number 3. After over 10 years in Scotland, I have to say that I am finally really learning to love some of the things that just like are an integral part of Scottish culture. You know, when I came here, when I first moved here, if you watch my videos, you probably know, like, this wasn't my dream. Sorry. I wasn't like one of you guys who are dreaming about moving to Scotland and, you know, that's your 5-year plan is to make it to Scotland, live here forever. For me, I just kind of like failed upward into Scotland. It just happened to me, and here I am. And yeah, so like when I first moved here, I didn't really think twice about what makes Scottish culture, what's, you know, what I should be prepared for or whatnot. I can't say that I moved here and I was like, yay, bagpipes! Like, I can't say that I was moved by bagpipes. Now, I kind of am. And especially, like, it's weird. Like, you get, like, a sense of... It's obviously, it's not like nationalism, because like you're not a national of Scotland, but these things, they just slowly creep up on you, even these things that you originally thought you wouldn't like, you know, like bagpipes or haggis crisps. We have some at home. Iron brew, I can't say that I originally liked it, it just tasted kind of weird to me, but I guarantee you that if at this point I moved to a different country altogether, I would be really missing all of those things, including bagpipes. I think that this point, number 3, is very closely connected to point number 4, which is that the longer you stay here, the more crystallized idea you get about what Scotland actually means. So this is, some of you will definitely like start typing these angry comments down below. That's fine, it helps my algorithm. I'm fine with it. I need to learn to take them. It's okay. But to give you some insight, when you live outside of UK, all of UK, I don't mean just Scotland, all of UK, it's easy to perceive it as like, well, that's United Kingdom, like politically that is a unit, you know, here's a king, here's, you know, the sort of political leadership, and you know, then it just like trickles down like in any other country. And honestly, most European countries have some sort of like smaller areas which might have some sort of like rivalry between them. You know, Czech Republic does have that, you know, we have like Moravia and Silesia, and you know, there's a bit of kind of, you know, rubbish between those little like sub sort of areas. And I think that's to the average European or like Western person, that is how we assume it works in the UK. And you, unless you truly like study it, you kind of have to like be here to understand the true differences. There's obviously also like kind of an unpleasant power dynamic, right? Because like England is the more powerful one. Just recently, you know, England just kind of vetoing some of the rules that we made up here in Scotland that we had the right to create, and they just went like, we don't think so, that seems a bit too liberal. Yeah, they just did that to us, and you keep watching these things sort of unfold, and I don't want to say you start like hating on England, but you definitely start understanding why some Scottish people would have a problem with England. And obviously there's that whole like historical side of things also, you know, it's not just something that's happening now. Scotland and England have always had a complicated history, it's a complicated relationship. And I think that it's not just in the UK, sometimes it really takes visiting a country to understand their relationship with surrounding countries. It did take me a couple of years. I think that like my first couple of years here, it maybe felt a bit uncomfortable to be delving into that. I didn't really have that many like Scottish friends, and also I didn't have this channel. Sometimes this channel, me like sharing my sort of findings and opinions and angry people kind of commenting down below, sometimes that is the starting point of me kind of thinking about something differently. Number 5, living in Scotland has thoroughly changed my wardrobe. Now, when I first moved here, I self-identified as this self-respecting, city-dwelling person who definitely did not have a trekking jacket or hiking boots, none of that. I was very kind of like, you know, like skinny jeans, leather boots, you know, nice coat, that sort of like fake Burberry trench coat sort of style. It's weird. Obviously everyone's style changes throughout the years, but I can definitely see how life in Scotland has made quite a big difference to what I wear now. So I would say that at any point between like start of October and end of April, I am basically living in this outfit here. As you can tell, this is not a super fun outfit, and I try to not wear it in my videos because like visually boring, but for like practicality of living in Edinburgh and Scotland, this is perfect. So my earmuffs, I find that hats don't really keep my ears warm, so earmuffs it is. Then this is kind of like a functional jacket, as you can probably hear. It's that sort of like ASMR material. But it's really good at keeping both the wind and the wetness out while not being like too stuffy, like it doesn't get too hot in there. It's great. A lot of pockets on the inside as well. Then usually on my bottom half, I tend to wear these, I guess you could say like jeggings. These are from Uniqlo. I have like 6 pairs of them because I'm a creature of habit. They're very elastic and I can do all these things in them. Look at me. Maybe don't look at me. On my feet right now I'm wearing these Timberland boots, which were kind of like a replacement for my regular hiking boots. I think that both of these are good options. I just find hiking boots are a bit more sweaty and smelly, and Timberlands kind of like when you clean them, they pass as like a nice city boot, but at the same time Edinburgh is really like muddy. So especially if you're walking through the parks, or if you're just, you know, if you're a photographer, if you're an explorer, I think it's really good to have a boot that's both kind of like wetness proof, waterproof is a thing that normal people say, and mud proof. And these are just that, and they're leather, and you can kind of put that like weatherproofing spray on them, and that's perfect. The only thing I would say that's wrong with this outfit for Edinburgh is that it's all black. So maybe if you're out and about after dark, put something reflective on yourself, maybe like a backpack of a reflective color, because it is objectively a bit dangerous to be wearing all black in Edinburgh when it's dark. Yeah, from like a driver's perspective, it sucks to not see people just like jaywalking around you, so keep that in mind. Number 6, I truly believe that living in Scotland has made me a nicer, kinder person who has a better feel for the community. And to give you some insight into how my brain works, I think that I am generally quite protective of like the energy I have for people around me. I think that in some countries I feel like if I'm not getting that kindness from the other people, then I'm gonna keep my kindness for myself and my loved ones. I know that Gandhi would not be happy with me. I am not the change I want to see in the world. I am waiting for the world around me to be nice, and then I'm like, okay, I can give you nice, that's fine. But Scotland, you know, for the longest time, I thought that this was like more of a problem with Czech Republic. I thought that in Czech Republic, people kind of are coming from the communist regime, and they have like trust issues, and they just have an issue with kind of similarly to what I just described in myself, that they don't quite want to give people kindness, like just because they want to make their nice better. I always thought that it was like a Czech problem, or kind of like a Central European, or like a post sort of like USSR problem. And then as I started visiting some other countries, I noticed, especially compared to like Scotland, after being here for a couple of years, I noticed that Scotland is still the kindest, the friendliest. I don't know, it just feels like such a cliche to say, but it is true. I thought when we went to the States, I thought that in the States it would be a lot more over the top, like people would be a lot more friendly and a lot more kind of like helpful. And we met many people who were, but like I would say on average, it was not as kind and as nice of a country. And obviously that was just a specific part of the United States, so I don't know. It's probably different in different parts of the States. I'm certain of it. But to me, this was a surprise to come back to Scotland and to have that like homey feeling of like, wow, like people here truly are the best. And it did take me possibly those like 10 years to realize this. I think that maybe for you who are more optimistic and just trust humanity more than me, I think you would maybe get to this point faster than me. To me, it truly took those 10 years to realize that Scotland is one of the kindest, friendliest places on earth from the ones I've visited. And I kind of reflect that. It makes me a better person who, when I see people in trouble, when I see people who have, accidentally tucked their skirt into their underpants, I want to help. so that was the most recent thing that I did that I thought got me good karma, but not that I think about it that way. But yeah, it's come to Scotland, you're gonna become nice. Number 7, surprise! You are basically a birder now.
She's stuck watching birds again.
I think that the whole of UK has kind of a love affair with the nature, especially kind of like the countryside, and BBC has programs like the Spring Watch. It's like footage of like flowers budding and trees blossoming. There's something almost like Japanese about that, I think. I think in the context of the whole of UK, some of this is sometimes a bit like conservative. But here in Scotland, I think it's a bit different, because here in Scotland, like whether you like it or not, you are surrounded by nature. Once again, sometimes it's simply the weather that like you cannot hide from, but also specifically here in Edinburgh, you have a volcano, you have a lot of parks, you have the seaside, and we live in the colonies, so there's just so many little gardens, they're filled with birds, and you just become fascinated by it. I genuinely don't think that there's any way of escaping becoming like a kind of like a small, like a entry level of a birder. Maybe it won't happen to you, but this video is all about me, so I can tell you that this has definitely happened to me. I did not give a damn about birds before I moved here, and now I own multiple birding books. I'm trying to see if there are any in this room, but I think that I moved them all into their own dedicated bird-themed area down in the living room. Number 8, after the 10 plus years here, I really noticed all the things that are wrong with kind of the political setup of this country. And I don't mean Scotland, I mean just kind of generally the Union. Like, if I was to be more specific about it, I think that like the royal family just kind of loses its magic. I think that when you're a visitor from a different country, especially one that doesn't have a royal family, then you kind of think like, oh, this is very fairy tale-y, this is very storybook, but I don't think it's quite worth, getting that like plate with the Queen's face on it. I don't know, like it used to be cuter and quainter to me in the first maybe like year here, and in the past 4 years here, it's hard. Like when you're living the UK life firsthand it's hard to root for the royal family when you see all the scandals and you see all the money that's being spent on them, while, you know, some people are just like falling into poverty. And yeah, that's like, to me, I genuinely was robbed of this kind of idealistic image of how the royal family and all those like lords and ladies, you know, steering the ship from down in London work. It's kind of a mess, and I'm sorry, I know that politics are a mess everywhere. It's there's no point in idealizing it, but I think that what we all do is that we focus on our own mess of like the country we're from, and when it comes to looking at the other countries, you know, like you might look at Canada and be like, wow, Trudeau is really hot, I bet he's a great politician, I'm so jealous of Canada and their hot PM. And then when you live there, or honestly, when you talk to anyone from Canada, they will just tell you like, no, he sucks. And anyway, what I'm trying to say is that like this has happened to me here, and yeah, I'm older and sadder now, and I can't say that I thoroughly enjoy the royal family anymore. So yeah, do you? Let's fight in the comment section below. Number 9. My tolerance for crowds and just spaces with a lot of people really went down. This might be connected to my age. I think that younger people in general do a bit better with crowds, you know, when they go to gigs, when they're in a busy train, things like that. But one thing that I've observed among a lot of my friends who moved here from different countries is that I think that Scotland attracts people who just like want to be left alone. I think that there's something about the general sort of ruggedness and emptiness, in the sense of, you know, like Scottish countryside is not really full of people, and honestly the cities most of the year also aren't like, you know, like sort of sardines tin situation. That's like, you get a lot of that down in England, I mean, especially in London. But here in Scotland, I think that most of the year, especially outside of the fringe, you know, the streets are pretty quiet, and when you know which streets to take and which back streets to take, and, you know, all of this sort of special little nooks, you kind of know how to avoid people. And then you find out when you travel or when the fringe happens, you just can't handle it anymore. Or, you know, I can't. It's every year this becomes harder and harder for me to deal with like thousands of people in one spot. It's I'm just so used to how quiet and kind of airy Scotland in general is. So sometimes then when I'm like stuck in a city, and especially if it's like a different city, if I go to London, I can't deal with it. Yeah. It's someone the other day in one of the comment sections, I think under the video about how to move to Scotland, someone said, please bear in mind that our country is too full. This country definitely isn't too full, and moving here is so hard that I'm pretty sure that at this point everyone who like legally manages to move to Scotland really wanted it like very hard. So don't worry about that one person who's leaving misleading comments. Like there's space here. And number 10, the last thing that I've noticed Scotland has changed about me very noticeably, and that has happened like straight away after I moved here. I stopped drinking, and I think this is kind of a plot twist in Scotland. I think that one of these two scenarios will play out. Either you move here and you find out that drinking is very expensive, or it just gets like too rowdy and you stop drinking altogether, or you want to kind of like be a part of the sort of local sort of socializing, you want to make local friends, and you feel like there's no way of doing that if you don't drink, so you like really lean into the drinking. I think that there's like no middle ground, especially when you're younger. I think that when you're older and you just kind of like start just visiting people in their homes, and like you do have your own social circle, you can just like visit them at home and have like one glass of wine. But I think that especially when it comes to drinking outside in like nice pubs and such, you will either like really like that will be your like pastime, you will lean into it, it's gonna be your favorite thing, or you will just be like, well, I'd rather eat. So I'm not gonna drink, I'm just gonna save myself the money and I'm not gonna drink at all. And that's kind of what happened to me. I'm not like a teetotaler, I do sometimes have a drink, but it just seems like a bad value. Like the tax here on alcohol is so high. Like it's hard for me, I'm just too worried about money, I think. So it's hard for me to have a drink without thinking like, oh no, like will I have money for bread next week? I'd rather have bread. And as a bonus, I realized just last week that when you live in Scotland, you also get this like extra access to some like non-Scottish cultures that you might not be expecting to learn more about or to appreciate more. For me, I would say it's specifically the Polish culture. For me, through sheer homesickness, I started going to many Polish shops. I think that whenever I see a Polish shop appear, I'm like, we're going in. Simon's always like, no, it's always the same weird like wafers and pancakes. I'm like, yes, and we're getting 5 of them. And just last week, Kilted Donut, one of my favorite donut places here in Edinburgh, I loved that they lent into celebrating Fat Thursday. You know, on Fat Thursday people eat donuts, so let's give people donuts and teach them about this like Polish holiday. And I thought that it was nice, and I realized that you might just, you know, learn to love like a second-hand culture here in Edinburgh specifically, because like Edinburgh is just such a nice like multi-culti sort of space. Now, before I end this list, I'm also going to mention that obviously when you live here, you kind of pick up some vocabulary that you wouldn't pick up anywhere else, but that is a video that I'm working on that I'm gonna publish some other time, all about the vocab you might notice specifically in Edinburgh. Stay tuned for that. If you don't want to miss that, don't forget to subscribe. I hope that this video made sense. I did have a pretty bad day today, not gonna lie. I really tried to power through this video. Sometimes the schedule is tight and I just have to try my best, even on a day like today when I did a whole bunch of crying. Now, you know, if you're here at the end of the video, then I know that you're the best of peeps, so I can share this with you, that, you know, today was crap. Anyway, I'm gonna go out now and enjoy some of the last hours of the day. It's the days are getting longer. Yay! So I'm gonna enjoy that. Hopefully it's gonna make my day a bit better. And yeah, you please stay tuned. Don't forget to visit me on Instagram under KakiBot or KakiBlog. And yeah, keep watching this channel. Don't miss out on any of the great videos that are coming up. And I shall see you soon.